Hi everyone. Thank you so much for joining this session. I am pretty sure, as much as I am excited to take the session, I'm hoping that you guys are also be really interested in jumping on to learning something on around the embracing the AI world, or maybe re-innovating ourselves into this new era of AI. So I am going to, as the content slideshow here, I will certainly give you a setting of the scene and then trying to go with slowly with the chat GPT and then moving forward into using the frameworks like such as, how, where exactly LangChain or Llama Index or any of that kind of things work out. Most likely we'll move into Azure-based cloud models, for example, Azure AI. I wouldn't suggest, I wouldn't be touching on the AWS side of things, but I can certainly give you pointers offline if you really want that side, but I can certainly take questions around that one if it's required. And lastly, certainly there might be one or two questions or a few questions if there is any time. So, just to begin with, obviously November 30, 2022 is the day where you must be remembering yourself, or you may have forgotten about it, but I certainly did not. This is a day where the Gen AI revolution has started, or ChatGPT was happened, or more or less it was on our doorsteps on 30th of November last year. Now, obviously, the ChatGPT was one of the architectures that it was built on was the GPT, pre-trained transformers, right? Generative pre-trained transformers. If you don't know anything about that one, do not get worried. All it's trying to do is that it's trying to, there is an article called, there is a paper called Attention is All You Need, but I don't suggest you to read that all, but if at all, if you're interested, please do read that. But at the end of the day, generative AI is all about predicting a word after what you're trying to say. If I say sky is, obviously generative AI will say, okay, sky is normally it's blue, right? That's what it's going to predict. There's also like, encoding and decoding as well. There's also regressive models, and we're not going to go too technical into the model side. So one of the things I always like to keep the session is pretty much on the engineering side rather than the data science or the machine learning side. So I try to not to go into too details of the models, how they're built, or how exactly you can start, doing everything from scratch. That's not this talk is not about that one. So I'm not going to be talking about that one. So certainly, I started experimenting with ChatGPT. Before that, I was working with, my master's thesis was on neural networks. So I was certainly started late 90s, but I'm not a machine learning engineer. Neither I have touched the machine learning or artificial intelligence or any of that sort in the last 20 years, I must admit, right? But obviously, the revolution has happened and I have become part of it. That's something which I cannot undo it. So this all started with certainly with Gen AI. Now Gen AI is here. We know that there is a vector search around the corner. We know that natural language processing, large language models. There's so many things are happening around. This is what the confusion state at the moment, right? What is an embedding? What is LLM? What exactly is a vector search versus dense search? And of course, I won't go into detail about vector or dense search, though they are very close to my heart. You may have probably realized that I have just released a book on the elastic search, which is the search, which is not a vector search related topic, but on the dense search or the sparse vectors, right? Now, as I said, there is no other tool that was used in so much anger by the population, by the common population, as ChatGPT. I don't think, at least I haven't seen. I know that during 95, 96, when I was in IIT, when I was in Kharagpur, one of my friend told me that, Google is here. Why don't you start using it? I was like, literally, I thought, what is Google? Then we started slowly searching and we couldn't get anything. But, after a week, there's another answer for one of my Java related problems, etc. Right? So it started, but that did not revolutionize. It's yes, it's there actually, but it's not revolutionized, or it did not blew away all people's minds, right? So I know that many have written haikus, may have written poems, stories. In fact, people have started making money off that as well. Now, obviously, we are pretty much, I'm assuming that everyone is here is an engineer. We kind of play with a UI, but not necessarily only UI, because UI certainly gives you a lot more things to you, but ultimately we wanted to embrace that. We wanted to see behind the UI, behind this ChatGPT UI, what is there? I mean, what exactly is there? Does that particular brain, what is actually giving us the answer, can I take away that brain into my application, my own, let's say I'm building a Netflix review server. Can I use that one for classification of the incoming data? Maybe I'm picking up I'm creating a Twitter feed related excuse me, sentiment analysis tool. Maybe can I use artificial intelligence or the large language model which is behind the chat GPT for my sake, so on and so forth. Because at the end of the day, working on a chat UI, probably vision, probably uploading documents and then start looking into that one is good, but not necessarily that is your end goal. As a software engineer, we always have to look for the avenues to integrate your software into the existing AI models. That's really, really important for all of us, right? So, I mean, as you can see a picture here, that's a postman where I have a local server running and then I'm asking a question, tell me a software engineer's joke, and then I got the answer straight away. That's not a big thing anyway, but this is what we want, right? We want it, where are the APIs, and how do I connect to the APIs, right? Now, one of the biggest thing ChatGPT is telling us is, if you can take a step back and understand this one, if you had to write a hello world program in Python, Java, C Sharp, whatever the language you have, you certainly have to have an IDE or similar kind of a text tool, whatever you call, and start writing it and then start compiling it and all those things. I mean, you go to write a class, for example, Java, you have to write a static class and then do all those things, right? But what happens, the revolution, what I'm talking about is that I don't need to do that anymore. I can simply say, a plain language, natural language coding, that is, I can simply say, write me a main class in Java that prints so and so. Now, I can also say, can you use the test-driven data development when considering or writing this class? And I'm pretty sure a ChatGPT will be able to give that to me very, very straightforward. In fact, I have done that one. I can show that in a second anyway, right? So if you take this one, I know you may have done this one, but actually the reason why I want to emphasize on this slide is that this is a natural language coding. So that means you are actually inputting what your thoughts are, what exactly you want the system to do it, rather than you start typing everything by hand, right? So this is the beauty of it. So it's your now coding has become a natural language chore more than anything else, right? So the same way, if I ask for building a data model for an employee, for example, I certainly, I'm able to get that straight away. So let me show you very quickly. Um, for example, I think I may have some of them. This is all I did was, write me a main class, and then it managed to give me very easily, right? But also I said, because I'm asking it to write me a test class, I'm using the TDD, it managed to create me a TDD, and then obviously started doing the jobs what I'm expected to do. Really good. Of course, I also asked it to do, can you Dockerize this project? Can you just help me out? Maybe I could create an ARM template and all those things as well. But ultimately, it managed to give me a Docker file. It managed to create a Docker Compose, including the build and running the containers as well. I mean, that's clever enough, right? That's really good for me. I really don't need to worry at all. It also managed to give me the actually, I should have shown you the other one as well, but yeah, this one which I wanted to show you is this guy. So I have asked it to give me a data model as well. I know if any of you are data modelers or DB guys, you could see that, or even technical architects, that you could just simply use the plant UML to. So if I just copy this one, and if I do just take 2 seconds, you can see that actually the diagram are already available here. So which is really cool, right? I mean, I kind of managed to get exportable code which tells me how I can start modeling my data. So I can have a sequence diagram, I can have a using plant UML, it exports using the plant UML. But I mean, of course, I'm not going to be going through the chat GPT side of things, but at some point of time, that helps you to I mean, when I say that, means like, the model behind the chat GPT helps you to do the lot of things for you. But certainly this is all from the UI side. We are talking about UI, right? We know obviously in the end, we certainly, need to worry about more than UI. You don't want just the UI taking over, but we wanted to find out the ways of how we can manage to get the APIs up and running as well. Now, this is all about you're improving your personal productivity, right? Because as a developer, maybe I want to do these things, and because I want to work on a particular project and I want to do it really quickly, maybe I can use this for my productivity gains, right? For that angle, yeah, this will help me out, but not necessarily. I can just simply um, this is not what the business want. Business don't need to worry. I mean, it's not that they don't worry, but that's not something which they are kind of asking us to do, right? They are expecting us to do quite a lot of other things. They, probably business might have been looked into many YouTube videos or ran through so many presentations from Microsoft or AWS or anybody else for that matter. Now they are really prepped up to say that, okay, can we start integrating into AI? Maybe in a way that they wanted to enhance the application capabilities, right? So there's a humongous number of use cases businesses actually asking us to look into that at the moment, right? Now, obviously, you want to embrace the AI into your systems. You also want to use the system to design the platforms with AI in mind. You also want to create some, simple architectures around the AI using embedded AI programs, right? So this is where we are actually going to start entering to the world of understanding, learning, and certainly using the AI, because at the end of the day, you got to understand how you wanted to use the AI for that matter, right? So certainly AI can do a lot number of things. A large language model is, I mean, if you are new to a large language model, is the brains of your neural network. Is a neural network which has been pre-trained by pumping in the corpus documents from internet and asking it to be it's kind of a we spend, I mean, they spend a lot of money, like Facebook or OpenAI and Amazon or any one of them. They spend millions of dollars for it to be retrained and trained. So we kind of give them a lot more emphasis for that particular training part. And obviously, remember, keep in mind, these are all trained with the public data. They really don't have a capability, or they don't have any knowledge about the documents what you have had in your organization. So whatever you see publicly, they know most about them. So most of these LLMs are pretty much work on the public domain data, and your business, they want you to work on their own data, because at some point of time, you may have a large number of trading systems, and you may have large number of trading algorithms that you may want to use AI to do some sort of a algorithmic trading on that data, but that's very, very private. That's only for you guys, right? Same thing if you're from an NHS application, maybe you have a data, but that's only certainly it's not exposed to the outside world, right? So that's where your business is asking you to give your expertise to say, can you start building me, or can you start using this information using the LLM to update this one, something which we certainly need to worry about it. So I can certainly say that it's a disruptor, but the only difference between the disruptor of this kind and the disruptors of, let's say, PayPal in few years back, or BTC, or in the Bitcoin, or any of that sort, is that this is some sort of a disruptor which actually going to be disrupting a large number of industries. It may take a creative industry to healthcare to movies, or any sort of industry you can think of. It's been used actually across anywhere. A lot number of majority of industries are certainly disrupted. So I mean, there are multiple ways of the output from LLM, or the large language model, or the models can be, like, you can summarize a piece of text, or you can classify the data, or you can, for semantic analysis, or some sort of sentiment analysis, or some sort of other way of looking into the data. You can certainly ask questions and answers, which I might show you a couple of things anyway. Not you. So asking gently is certainly, the ask. I mean, you got to the one of the biggest thing is that everything is in a natural language. Certainly that helps you a lot more on that side. So certainly your job is to explore the LLMs There's a ton of LLMs, ton of open source LLMs, private LLMs provided to us all of a sudden in the last few months. You should understand, okay, this is a way I got to go and start calling them. But at the same time, you also need to understand how I can start calling the APIs, how exactly I need to embed those data points into my application, right? So let's just quickly jump onto, let's say, a bit of a coding, right? I mean, I'm not going to jump into too much of code, but let's say I just have excuse me. Um, uh, you know, if you guys already familiar, I'm assuming that you already have a key, the API key for OpenAI. If you haven't had a chance to register yourself in the, on the, on OpenAI, please do go and register yourself. It's a it's a free cost. I think so you don't need to worry at all. Even if it costs you $20 a month or $10 a month, I strongly suggest that's well spent money rather than spending two or three coffees a day, right? I mean, that's equal to your $10, $20, right? So I would strongly suggest that, start looking into creating, not creating, but, making sure that you understand, learning, putting anything for yourself is really important. So for me, put that money rather than spending more coffees, just put that money on the getting a little bit of a extra subscription on that side. That will be really, really helpful for you. Anyway, let me quickly go through what I have here. So I have an env file which basically has got certain, I mean, I can delete this OpenAI key in a minute after I finish this one, but this is my OpenAI key. I can have, just simply I one of the things I started looking at is that if you haven't, I mean, I know some of you are from a Java background, but do not hold yourself that Python is something which is closer to AI and I can't do in Java, or, I only have to do in C Sharp or .NET or whatever it is. Forget about everything. Just start picking up whatever the language you think is comfortable with. There's certainly a lot number of scope. I mean, there's a lot number of languages that are, I mean, kind of a multi-languages support for most of these frameworks. But if you are interested in experimenting with a new language, for example, I would strongly suggest start with Python, because it's straightforward. It's not that bad to learn. This is a Christmas time, we have more holidays. Just stay for 2 days in a weekend. You can certainly get to the bottom of how you can write a program, how exactly you can do that one. Very, very simple. Okay. So I don't want to spend too much of time, but let me copy some part of the code at least. So all I did was couple of imports, and then nothing more than that. I'm just getting the environment file from this particular, I'm just reading that. So I got my key, everything is set up. So all I have to do is that I have to just simply say there is something called OpenAI has got that chat completion as an API. All you're going to do is that you're going to simply say create, and then here is where you can say, okay, what do I need to create? I mean, all you're doing is that you're simply calling a method called create on the chat completion object, and then you give two things here. You give model. Model is your, what model you want to use. I mean, in my case, I'm just using the chat GPT or GPT-4. This is the model behind your chat GPT. In the end, whenever you're typing in your UI, actually it's actually calling the GPT-4 behind the scenes, or GPT 3.4, 3.5, the other one. So in here, what you do is that you just give some messages. Messages are nothing but an array of your object, so which basically tells you what is my role. I mean, there are three types of roles. You can simply think of it as how you want to address your LLM. So I would say my role is basically I'm a user. So I'm just going to see that. And what is my content, or content in this case is, simply say what is your prompt. I mean, normally this prompt is the one which is actually going to coming back from from a user input. But in this case, I would say, who is Elon Musk, for example, right? For no better reason. So that's pretty much it. I mean, this should be able to give you, a call. It will make a call to your OpenAI. It spits out some information. In this case, let's say, is a result. And if you start printing it out, there's results. That should, I mean, if this all works together, it should be able to give you pretty straightforward data. Sorry, let me quickly get that to here. That's basically, I think, is the if I do a Python, I mean, it's very, very basic actually. So I have something missing there. Okay, that's the one. Okay. So that's it. I just have to do that one. Let it run in the meantime. What I also wanted to show you is very, very simple. So I started with, I mean, I've been right last 4 5 years. I think just before pandemic, I started picking up Python. But during the pandemic, I increased my, affinity, or my love towards the Python. It's become really one of the go-to languages. Although I've been a Java program for my whole life, I started inputting myself. I started enjoying the breadth and the support of AI into, I mean, especially in the AI world. Actually, it's been treated as one of the go-to languages. But having said that, it's not the only language you should think about. Anyway, coming back to this one, so you can see that actually I got choices which has been spit out, which has got a message, which has got the content, and this is the content I'm actually going to get it, right? So this is how many lines? Probably 4 lines. One, two, three, four. Like, let me, maybe, okay, I'll count here, including white space. You got 16 lines. You are able to, go to a API, or basically, somewhere a model which is established in the Azure ecosystem. You are actually invoking that model with your question, and you are getting the answer back straight away from there, right? How simple is that? Now, having said that, this is not the only one. You can certainly go and invoke a little bit more than these kind of things. I mean, if you want, I can show you more and more examples. I think there's some examples in the um, on the GitHub as well. Probably I'll just send out the link as well in a minute. But the majority of the things what I wanted to show you is that is straightforward. I mean, I also have I think I should be able to run this one. Um, if I do a server one, for example, all I have here is that I'm just creating a server. At the end of the day, I mean, of course, there's a problem there at the moment for I won't be able to run that. But let me go through very quickly. So I'm running a Flask server. It's basically exposing on the T3000 API. So once I have this one, all I'm going to do is that I'm going to expose the API to the world to say, can you go and call me on, localhost, whatever it is, 3000 slash ask, and then I should be able to get that method back to you, right? Given to you. How simple is that? I mean, that's basically I'm trying to say you have a model. The model is behind the scenes is certainly the model which is OpenAI model. Now I am taking that model, I'm wrapping that model with my own RESTful endpoints, and I'm exposing to the world. In this instance, if you think about it, you could create your own API server around the models and deploy it in your environment. So if you want to, for example, if you have a Java microservice, or if you have another microservice, and that those microservices are actually expected to talk to a endpoint, so talk to a LLM. This is a way you have simple, straightforward mechanism to get that up and running in no time. That's the beauty of this guy. So if I just quickly run through this one, so I built a LLM here, right? Sorry, this is an open source LLM, or open LLM, for example, OpenAI LLM. And what you did was you have created a wrapper around it, or a service around it, which is basically um ultimately your Java service, Node.js, whatever you want, whatever the way you want it. Behind the scenes is actually going to call the LLM to go and get the data. So your client, or maybe your application, right? One of them, your application, can simply call this endpoint, which is which you are opened up in your own ecosystem, right? Obviously, this is your ecosystem. Probably this is certainly this is OpenAI model, but ultimately what you did was basically you have managed to integrate your service or your application with a AI. So this is what your first step is going to be. So creating an AI, creating an endpoint around your LLM, right? That's the first ever thing. I would strongly suggest to start looking at it. So that way, now you have ring fenced your LLM, created the APIs pretty much, right? I mean, once you have the APIs, what is asking you not to invoke it, right? That's very, very straightforward. Now, one thing I wanted to explain to you is the LangChain. Certainly, LangChain is a framework that will not I mean, let me take a step back. So this is what I'm using at the moment, OpenAI, right? So this is a paid version or the commercialized version, but I'm certainly paying for this one. There is an enterprise version of OpenAI as well. So if your company is interested, they can also buy that OpenAI enterprise version, but you will be charged for, tokens in and tokens out, right? But there's also a chance that, I don't want to use OpenAI's GPT 3.5 or GPT-4 version. I may want to use another model, maybe some Hugging Face model from Hugging Face, or maybe OpenAI's Meta's Llama 2, right? There's multiple, there are hundreds and hundreds of models available at the moment. The explosion of models are, you can't even keep track of all those models at this point of time. Now, if, for example, not all these models are actually going to be useful for your own, for all the business cases, what you have in your estate, some could be like, some of them could be taken care by Llama. Some of them could be taken care by Code Llama, for example. Some of them might be Anthropic. Some of them might be the text embedding, for example, right? So there are tons of models which does that particular job really very very well. So it is your job as an engineer to find out what exactly those models are. Of course, I'm not going to, I mean, unfortunately, because of the time reason, I won't be able to go through that, but that's something which you can certainly start looking at it. Hugging Face might allow you to give you some, I think when I jump onto AI, sorry, onto the Azure, I might show you some models which is useful for what category you can pick it up. Okay. Now, what LangChain has done is that if, for example, when I run the server, I am actually pretty much glued to OpenAI at the moment, right? So my problem here is that what happens if I want to change my target of a large language model from OpenAI to, for example, to Meta or Meta's Llama 2, right? I could always have that kind of a change, right? But unfortunately, now my code is certainly stuck up with OpenAI. I can't use that, right? Fortunately, really fortunately, LangChain is one of the framework which allows you to swap these models or to work with any number of models without you to worry about too much, without you to worry about, kind of it's a abstracted framework that you should be able to swap and work with any models. For example, in this case, I certainly using OpenAI. OpenAI, if you look at it, right, it's that simple. I can simply say, create me an instance of an OpenAI. Behind the scenes, it's going to look for all the things. All you got to do is that you just have to provide the OpenAI key, or if you haven't exported your OpenAI API key as an environment variable, it certainly picks it up that way as well. Doesn't matter. You can certainly give a little bit more information about temperatures and other things. But if you don't do that, I already created a large language model by simply calling a class. I could also use the same thing for other classes as well, right? Other supported models as well. So there's a easy way to do that one. So for example, if I wanted to use this one for OpenAI like Meta's model, that is Llama 2, I can certainly use Llama 2 related classes here, right? And you can always mix and match. I do have quite a lot of examples around that one. So LangChain, all in all, is actually a framework which helps you to make sure that it's your responsibility, of course. Make sure that you can move um, um, your needle across to any different model based upon your requirement. So if I want to use one particular model today, I can use it. Tomorrow, you can change that to a different model. So it's up to you how you want to change that. Now, having said that, let me quickly show you something around the platform. Actually, platform is basically a if you are not familiar with the platform, it's again from OpenAI. It's one of those OpenAI's tools that you could go and experiment. You could create your own assistants and then try it out as well. Recently, they have added a playground, plus you can also have assistants as well. So here is where you could simply create the way you want it, and then you simply, I mean, the way when I say create your way means you can simply create a API, sorry, create a playground with your model. In this case, I just want to test out, let's say 3.4 with 16K. and with whatever the instructions I want to give. I don't want get weather. I don't want any of the functions, but I wanted to simply save this one. Then you can, once you save this model, once you save this particular playground assistant, what you can do is that you can simply start asking it to the questions, and then it's going to give you the answers. Once you're happy, then you can deploy this one to your client as well. So there are few of them you can do here, either playground or assistants. But the most important thing is that, of course, is the API keys. This is where you are actually going to get your API keys to 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 experiment, right? But that's not what I am just going to end on. So if you jump onto portal, so for example, let me go on to quickly onto portal.azure.com. So if I simply just come over here, so I think you still see my screen, I guess. Okay, I don't know what I'm showing, but hopefully you are still seeing my screen. I'm sharing my, hopefully you can see my screen, right? Anyone can give me a thumbs up. Oh, yes. Thanks, Sachin. So if I go to my portal, for example, portal.azure.com, obviously one of the biggest thing is that you don't need to worry about creating running these llama models or all these things on your own machine, but you can also go on to a cloud-based technology or cloud-based provider like Azure or AWS or Google Cloud to deploy them and start working on them as well, right? Before I go on to working on, I mean, talking with them, let me show you one simple um, example of a code, which I think it'll be really good to see as well. Look at this one. Where is my GPT? So I have a server here up and running. So it's something called my GPT. So I created, let's say, my own GPT. Look at my URL to X and Y and Z. So I'll explain to you what exactly that URL is. But ultimately, there's a little bit of a code. But you can see that I'm using three models. I'm using OpenAI model. That's basically a commercial model. But I'm also using Meta's Llama 2, which is basically a open source model. So I could use any of the, I mean, I could just simply deploy it, or get this model, localize this model, do fine tuning if I want to, and I can commercially, I can create this, I can create any APIs around this one, and then I can sell it off, or I can give it to my organization. Whatever you want, you can do that on Llama 2. Of course, Code Llama is, as the name tells you, that if you're really interested in writing some code, this is the fine-tuned or trained on core information, something like Copilot, right? So if I start this application, which I think I'm already running it, yeah, there is already running it. So let's say if I start this guy somewhere where I don't know where it is, but let me open up a new window and show you what's happening there. So I have a locally running application at the moment, which basically a pretty much straightforward chat application. This is my chat. I have multiple model choosers here. I can choose from OpenAI. So let's say what is BTC, for example. This is actually going to go to, obviously it's certainly using the OpenAI models. It's going to go to OpenAI LLM, pick up the data, and then show it to me. But I can always go to Llama 2 as well. And then if I want to ask the same thing, Llama 2, the only difference here is that I am not going to, this Llama 2 is a free model. It's an open source model. It's actually running on my local machine. So the idea here is that I don't need to pay for, certainly for OpenAI. I can use this open and locally running Llama 2, and I can start using it for my own benefit, right? That's the easiest way. If I really want to, use the core Llama, so right, can you write me a Java-based employee class for testing, for example? Okay, so ideally now I'm just using the code Llama that should be generating me code related applications or code related uh, you know output for my, certainly my, maybe I want to do create some Docker templates or ARM templates, or maybe I want to do some shell scripts, or I want to create some test labs, whatever you want. It certainly helps me to do that one. Now this is a very easy way I have done that. And so if you can see, I'm using Code Llama. It's managed to give me this, all free. I mean, you don't need to go to pay for what do you call sorry, pay OpenAI. It's actually provided to me. So if I go back to my here, my local instance of the application, my GPT, you can see that I have these three models at the moment, but I don't need to only hold to these three applications. I can also have as many as you want. The reason is that there's something called Olama. So Olama is another framework. I know I'm introducing a frameworks on frameworks, but you got to keep on, um, you know, probably you have to keep on grabbing all these things as you go along. Olama is very, very simple framework which allows you to run your localized versions of any of these applications. So what I mean is that, for example, if I go back here, just go to Olama AI, I think it's called Olama AI. So all you got to do is just download the Olama server. So basically, it's a very simple Olama container. Once you do that one, if you go into the models, excuse me, you can run a model. For example, I can run the Llama 2 model by simply calling Olama run to Llama 2. So in my case, I don't think that I can show you here, but there is a Olama already is running on my machine. So once you download it and once you install Olama on your machine, all you go to do is just simply say Olama run Olama 2, sorry, Olama run Llama 2. That will go to Llama 2, get the download, that the whole model will be downloaded onto your machine, and it starts running up your Llama 2 straight away on your local machine. Once that is running up and running, all you're going to do is that you're going to, that's obviously exported on 14. Let me increase the font here. 14.3.434. So that means you are now in control of asking the Llama 2 with your questions, right? So that's how cool is that? I mean, of course, this is the bit where you want to say whether it's Llama 2 or Code Llama or any other models, what this particular framework is allowing us. So you can see that there's quite a lot of I was using Code Llama earlier, but there's quite a lot of uh, the models available for you to download on your machine. I think this is what I was asking my good friend Sachin the other day. I was trying to Dockerize this particular Olama and then dump it into Azure so that I know that my Docker is exposing my Olama of two services. One is Olama, so Code Llama and Llama 2. Then from my local machine or from any other machines, I could simply use that API call to say, go and get that one. That means I have a free LLM running on my machine somewhere in the cloud, and then I can talk to that particular machine by simply invoking the APIs rather than it's as simple as rather than calling this 434 on a local host, I would be calling my Azure hosted VM with that one. So that means the whole application will run uh, calling my servers which are uploaded on a cloud. So that means I don't need to not just necessarily to pay for anybody else, but I can also have I can shift I can test my application or my in prompts against different models. This is really one of the good things. I mean, I can go into so many details about this one, but I'll just leave it there. Just before I mean, so once that is done, come over to Azure, because this is where sometimes you may want to have a meet around cloud provider giving us the hands rather than us doing everything from scratch, right? So all you can do is that you can simply go to creating not a dashboard, but creating an OpenAI. There are two parts here. You can create an Azure OpenAI, or the latest one is the Azure AI. So one of the resources, once you start creating one of them, you should be able to start getting the hands around that one. So I mean, you can start playing with that one. So in my case, what I did was I created a resource called Azure AI resource. I mean, you can also simply just jump in there. It might cost you, in fact, actually, it is costing me quite a bit sometimes. I think last month I paid about $700 or $800. I think this month is already gone up very high because I was trying to do fine tuning. I was trying to do deploying of the Llama 2 model on the Azure, which costs you around 6K, $6,000 or £5,000 for me actually. So I managed to shut it down in 2 days time, but the bill was already gone to $300 or $400. Okay. So once you're here, this is your OpenAI Labs. So you can go to your studio. So studio is the place where your machine learning algorithms or models or chat completion algorithms and models, they're all available for you to play and test. Right. So you can see that it's just opening up now. So it's this very simple. You apply for, go to your Azure portal, or if you're not familiar with Azure, simply, start learning a little bit on the cloud technology. Very, very easy, very straightforward. Once you're inside Azure, all you got to do is that simply start creating a AI service there. Once your AI service is up and running, you have multiple options here. There is obviously there are a few tiles here. If you want to get your own data, then start using this particular sample they have provided us. It's up to you however you want. But in my case, I have some deployments. So first I would normally do is that I deploy a text embedding, and I also deployed a 3.5 version of GPT. Unfortunately, one quick thing is that when you're testing it out, make sure that um, the region is always going to be East US, because in any other regions, like for example, I was trying in the UK region, these models are not available yet at the moment. So make sure that your resources are placed in East US. So you can simply, all I'm trying to say is that, you can just create your own model here. So I don't need to go with that one. So at the moment, I'm just created already one Turbo 3.5. So this is a testing ground. So all you're going to do is that you come over here, you have a assistant setup here, you have a chat session here, and you on the right hand side you have configuration. So in here is where the ones which you see here, deployments, those are the ones you're going to pick it up. So in my case, I already have a 3.4 3.5 turbo model deployed. So I can simply say you, so I think rather than, this is your prompt for the system. You are a uh funny girl, giving giving answers in what language? Sorry, in maybe in funny way. Okay, for example, right? So that's the instructions for the system. So system is actually going to be taking that as one of the uh, prompt. Now, on your right hand side, I can test to say actually what is BTC, for example. Let me see if it actually gives in a funny way. You can see he's just managed to change the completely sentence actually. Okay, so it did take my what do you call my system input. If you change that, you can certainly start looking into changing it as well. But I think the beauty of this one is that you could go and add your own data. So I can simply say I just want to add, let's say I want to go and create my own, I can create a PDF file. I think I already created this one, but let me go quickly. This one, I have a blob storage. I already created this one. I also have created a search service. So everything is already there. I'm going to create a vector service, so search service. So I think I have Java 8, but I'll just say Java 8 docs, for example. I have a book actually, which I wanted to show it in a second. I have created a text embedding model in the deployments earlier, so I'm just using it. I acknowledge it. Once I have here in this here, you can simply go and get any book. For example, I was trying to create a GPT assistant for Spring Framework, because Spring Framework is about 1400 pages or something like that. It's humongous. So I wanted to create an assistant where you could start to type a question and then you can get an answer. I also created something for my own book, which is a Java 8 Lambda, which was written about 7 8 years back. It still is being used very well. So for example, let's say for the simplicity's sake, I have another PDF I just picked up. This is only 4 pages, so I managed to upload it. And once I upload that one, I wanted to create both hybrid search, which is vector search and keyword search. I mean, it's not the time for me to explain to you what those searches are. Ultimately, vector search is about searching using the embeddings. It's kind of using mathematical formula, right? So don't worry too much about it at this point of time. Save and close. Now, if you look at it here, I am ingesting the data into my assistant, so into my chat playground. So what it means is that it's now taking that chunk of data, those 4 pages of that cancer document, chunking it up and trying to create some embeddings and then storing it into your local folder. The same thing what I've done in my other applications as well, which is what I wanted to show you, but I forgot. So let me bring that up as well. This might be the one. Uh, yeah, this one. If I come over this guy. So in here, if I have a simple application here, which is running here. I might be able to restart again. So this is actually my local machine, which is running from here, which helps you. By the way, the Azure is still going on in the background, so that's why I wanted to change case a little bit. So here I can pick up my, my cancer details, for example, and I'm uploading that file. It just kind of creating a summary of that one. So if you see, actually the whole document has been digested and created a summary of what I want. So this is the one of the requirements, or sorry, one of the outputs of a large language model. You give a set of documents or a set of instructions, a set of files, or set of inputs, and tell it to say, can you summarize from reading from all these things, right? Just imagine if you are working on a court case and you got really huge lots of technical, sorry, not technical, the legal documents that you want to read. Maybe you should just simply just come over here, pick up browse the file, and then do the job. It does the job for you really very well. I have tested it. I mean, I can also ask the questions, but let me go quickly show you one last thing here. I am using something called where is my Chroma. So all I'm trying to do here is that I am the document which I uploaded is chunked up into something called embeddings. Using, of course, I'm using a commercial OpenAI embeddings, but you could also use the Llama one as well. In this case, I am using a free open source vector database called Chroma, and I'm storing those embeddings, those chunks of data into that particular database. So I have already stored them inside my local database. So Chroma is a vector database. And why vectors? Vectors is nothing but a number, as kind of any text you see. For example, in my cancer document, wherever the cancer document is. So let me bring it back here. So here, for example, if you think of this is my PDF document, so let's say this is a text. If this text, I mean, the whole text is kind of a chunked up into, let's say, line by line. So this one line, the second line, and third line, and fourth line. And once the text has been chunked up, it also goes through something called an embedding process. In embedding process, all is going to do is that the text what you see will be converted into numerical matrices. I mean, matrices are, it's kind of a numerical form has been created, which you and me can't manage to read these or make the sense out of it, but machine learning models can certainly do that. That's exactly what the database is actually going to be holding the data for you. So when you make a search, that search is also going to be converted into embedding, and that embedding is going to be searched against your Chroma database data, and it's going to say, okay, what are my relevant results? I mean, of course, you can throw in a lot more things than that, but that's the high level there. Let's simply go on to what's happening on our uh, OpenAI Studio. So yeah, here. So you can see that it's still going on. So unfortunately, I won't be able to show you that at this point of time. But the idea here is that you could simply, once that is done, once the ingestion is done, this is really a painful process. What you can do is that you can deploy a new web app from here. So you just create a, whatever the name you want to give, you can just simply say, can you come over, sorry, can you, what do you call, create, let's say this is cancer details, for example, and give your subscription plan, everything, and then simply deploy. What this is going to do is that is going to take whole of your stuff what you have, and is going to create a application and dump it into your Azure. right? For a public access. I have done this already, so I might show you this one. So I have created this. This is the website is going to give you. So whenever you make a name here, for example, when you're deploying it, that name becomes your website's name. So for example, in my case, I uploaded Java 8, and this Java 8 is being deployed with this particular domain name. So this is now public to everybody, right? So if, for example, when I make a call to say what is the function, I mean, you can see this usually simple user interface it has created for us. So when I say what is the functional interface, it has given me the exactly information what it is, what I have written in the book. Plus, it also said these are the two references it found out. So if you can see, I managed to tell that in the in the document as well. So basically, somewhere I may have in my document I may have mentioned it about the functional interfaces. So this is the coolest thing with Azure. You could pick up any of any of the things here. You can start looking into excuse me, creating your own stuff. Oh, we are actually just about shy of a few minutes. So on that note, I just wanted to mention it to you. I mean, you can always test it and try it out here, and then you can certainly export this one as an application that you could do that one. So on that note, what I wanted to mention it to you is there is on the machine learning, this is the Azure OpenAI Studio, but the other studio on the other so if I go back to my portal, for example, if you create your own machine learning lab, you can deploy a commercially available models, or you can also create your own excuse me, llama based models as well. So you could deploy your llama based models as well if you want to use on the Azure AI Studio. So if you create one here, actually at this point of time I don't have it, but if I create a new Azure AI, it might take a few minutes, but you should be able to create there's a component, sorry, more models have this humongous number of models been already given to us. You can pick and choose and you can deploy them. And once they're deployed, you expect an API to be given to you. And that API is the one which you're going to be integrating from your applications. So I know it's a long shot. I'm trying to maximize my time in that. But ultimately, to wrap up, all you got to do is that make sure that, I mean, of course, I have written quite a lot on, I think about 10 or 9 or 10 what do you call sorry, the articles on LinkedIn. So please go through one by one. But what I wanted to say is that there's certainly a scope for an engineer, a software engineer, software tester, anybody to integrate your applications into AI. This is something which I really appreciate you to pick up your time to start looking into embracing these things, because at some point of time somebody is actually going to be asking you to say, can you integrate my application, or can you create a new AI tool for this particular matter? There are humongous resources online. There are really number of lots and lots of use cases that you could think of. Anything you can think of from now onwards, think in the world of probably how I can use AI to do this job. There are so many use cases that you could use this one from that angle. So I know I could take another half an hour to go through, but I know that I have only said up to 7 o'clock. So with that, I am just opening up from questions. So unmute yourself and talk to me, ask me any questions. If you have anything at all, then we can take it from there. All right. If no one has got any further questions, I do have to stop there, and probably we'll catch up sometime in the new year then. One more
Thank you
session.
very much. Thank you.
No worries
Thank
at
you.
all.
Have a
Thank you,
good
everyone.
Christmas and
Thanks a
New Year,
lot.
guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye.
Thank you.
Yes.
Bye.